When it comes to run and gun shooters on the NES, no game exemplifies run and gun shooting than our good friend Contra. Well, it was just the standard game, 2-player simultaneous, you're running, you're shooting. Now other NES games, especially for this time, maybe had a cartoony look to them, but this one was more gritty, this one was more dirty, this one was more like you're running and you're shooting and you're living out your 80s action movie fantasy by playing a game like Contra. So many upgrades you can get in this game too, the different weapons you can get. Can you go through this game without picking up an upgrade? Maybe you can. Maybe you can go through this game without even typing in the 30-man code. I cannot. It's one goal I wouldn't mind accomplishing sometime in the future. I mean, everyone has their favorites. The spread, of course, was most people's favorites. I liked the laser. Not the most applicable, but you know, this game had a lot going on for itself. It's Contra. I don't need to talk a whole lot about Contra. It is Contra. It is the measuring stick. It is the staple when it comes to run and gun shooters. Contra is it. The different forms ability. So it's not just like left and right run and gun shooting. Then there's like the behind the back shooting. A little not really a coverage shooter because you're not hiding behind anything, but you know, the over the shoulder thing. That's kind of fun. Gives you a different perspective to it too. And then future levels might have big old bosses and everything like that too. Some of the levels, instead of going left and right, go, you know, up, the stages and everything. Contra had a whole lot going on for itself. So many games in the Nintendo library were that, oh, if you like Contra, you're gonna like this game. But is Contra the epitome of that? Well, let's put it to the test. Let's have Contra versus all the rest. So a bunch of other games that play just like Contra or close to Contra. It's like, if you like Contra, you're gonna like this. But is it better than Contra? I guess we're gonna find out. Now, of course, this is according to my own opinion. And how are you feeling? You got John Riggs here, huge old school gamer, love talking about video games, especially the NES. If you want to support the channel, you can hit the subscribe button. I appreciate that. I also do have a shop where I sell my custom homebrew video games. I sell custom air fresheners that are kind of fun. Now, they're oddly specific, like this arcade one that smells like a 1980s arcade with like menthol cigarettes, spilt Coke, used gum. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, anyway, never mind the shameless plug. What are some games that are like Contra, and is Contra better than all the rest? Well, let's find out. Now, if you talk about Contra, you talk about Super C. Now, Super C is Super Contra. They called it Super Contra in the arcade. Why did they call it Super C? I don't know. But this game, now, in my opinion, I enjoy this game more than Contra, but this is also the sequel to Contra that came out a couple years later. And is it really better than Contra, or am I just like, I played Contra so much that this was so fun to see a new Contra game on the NES? Well, a couple of different weapons too. Instead of having that dumb spiral fireball thing, this one has more like explosive fireballs. Like when you hit it, it explodes and maybe hit some other people around there too. Not a bad idea. The spread is back. It wouldn't be Contra without spread. Gotta love that too. Yeah, pretty much the same graphics, kind of the same sound, music's cool and everything too, you know, it is a standard run and gun style game. I do like it when the bosses have like a definite hit point. Sometimes you have these NES games where the boss is like, am I supposed to shoot in the eyes? Am I supposed to shoot it in the belly? Like, where am I supposed to shoot it? Where am I supposed to attack? And the Contra games have always been pretty good at like, you definitely want to hit it here. Or at least give you the sound effect that you're making some progress here, doing some damage or something anyway. And both Contra and Super C had that too. But now instead of the behind the back mode, the every other level is this overhead mode. So that's kind of fun. That's, again, changes up the gameplay. I appreciate that. I appreciate that it does something like this. I mean, this whole game could have been this. And there are some other games that we'll talk about later on that are just this. But is this what Contra makes? Or is Contra, you know, with the multiple weapons, the 2-player simultaneous, the mixing up gameplay modes, is that what makes Contra Contra? Or is what makes Contra Contra the spread gun? Or, you know, what the bullets look like, the giant orbs, you know, or something. Hard to say. Me personally, I'm choosing Super C over Contra. I know that's probably not the most popular opinion, but this is my opinion. You can let me know yours in the comments as always. You know, if we're talking about Super C, we can also talk about Contra Force. Man, this game is something else. So Contra Force, again with Contra, 2-player simultaneous, and there are 4 characters you can choose from, each with their own different abilities. Now in Contra and Super C, Player 1, Player 2, they're both the same guy. This one, you can play as different characters that'll have their own different guns too. And you have weapon upgrades like you do in Contra. You can jump and do the little spin, jumpy, flippy thingy you do when you play Contra. But it doesn't quite feel like Contra, does it, when you play this game? It's a little bit slower paced, a little bit slower moving. I'll tell you anyway, you probably already know this, and if you already shouted it out, that's fine too. But in Japan, this game was not Contra. This game was called something else. When they brought it out in the United States of America, they put Contra's name on it to sell more copies. Did it work? Well, apparently. Unfortunately, a lot of people got burned too, because like, oh, a new Contra game, and you play it and you're like, ugh, not quite. Not quite. This game is fun though. I'm here to tell you, this is actually a really fun game. Don't discredit it because it's not exactly Contra, right? It is a great game, I think. It's just not Contra. And then also, too, like you pick up the loot boxes instead of the things that fly overhead to give you the new weapon upgrade. This one's more like a Gradius system, where you pick up as many as you want, and then you select it when it's on the the item or the gun that you want to play as for a little bit. Pretty interesting game, definitely collectible. Not Contra, not very much Contra. Versus the two, you gotta give it up to the OG. Gotta give it up to Contra. But what about another shooter also from Konami? Well, that's where Bucky O'Hare comes into play. Now, with Bucky O'Hare, it's a great run-and-gun shooter. Based on Bucky O'Hare, the comic, I suppose there's a cartoon probably in there somewhere too. Great graphics, great sound, great shooter. It also has, I mean, there's like little weapon-type thingies attached to the side of land masses, so that's very Contra-like. And there are different characters you can play as. Now, you start off with Bucky O'Hare, you can unlock the other characters later. And you know what? There's even different gameplay modes too, where you can also run and gun side-scrolling, left and right, and then even vertical sometimes. So that's kind of Contra-like. And the different characters, like Contra Force, might be a little bit different. I mean, it's a little bit like Contra, not exactly the same. It's not a one-hit kill. You do have a life meter. Fun game. Fun game on this one. Really fun game. I love me some Bucky O'Hare. But still, given the option, I think I'm still going with Contra. All right, let's leave Konami for now and check out Sunsoft. This will not be the last Sunsoft game you see on this list. Journey to Silius on this one. A fun run-and-gun game. Great music. Great sound. Pretty difficult. Not exactly like Contra, but let's, never mind the whole what makes Contra Contra. We're just kind of comparing it to the other run-and-gun games on the NES. Not every run-and-gun game on the NES, but we do have a lot of them in this video. And Journey to Silius is definitely one I wanted to cover. It does have a life meter, so it is not a one-hit kill. That's got that going on for itself. Don't really have a whole lot going on for weapon upgrades either. There are, but not like Contra anyway. And another one of those two, again, I probably don't need to tell you this, Journey to Silius was slated to be a Terminator-themed video game. It's from Sunsoft. Sunsoft did Batman. Sunsoft did Gremlins 2. And Sunsoft, I mean, you can look up magazines and everything, this was going to be a Terminator game. Well, they lost the licensing or whatever, so they changed the graphics and made it kind of generic. Again, super fun game. I'm still giving it to Contra. G.I. Joe, well, he is the real American hero. There are two G.I. Joe games on the NES. I'm going to cover the Taxon one in this video. There is a Capcom one. You can look up the Capcom one on your own time. Capcom one is fantastic. Me personally, I prefer the Taxon one over the Capcom one, and a great run and gun game too. You choose your character and like two other characters too, so you have three characters you can kind of bounce around, back and forth as needed, and each of them have their own lifeline, much like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where it's like, oh, the one guy's getting down on health, you can switch over and then play as a different character who has more health. Now, you do have a punch button in this game. It would be kind of cool if Contra also had a, like a dagger or something like that too, but with Contra, you have unlimited bullets, so you don't really need that. In this game, you have a finite amount of, I say bullets, sometimes like Snake Eyes just throws like shuriken fireballs. No, Hadouken fireballs, not shuriken. That's the uppercut. Oh, he throws the Hadouken style fireballs. Snake Eyes does in this game. But the bosses are also very Contra-like in a game like this. So very, very good. Love this game. G.I. Joe, it's one of the best. I'm still giving it to Contra. Amagon, dear lord. So we have this very cutesy, very cartoony, but still a run-and-gun game. The jumping mechanic is weird. The jumping has weird gravity, is the best way I can describe it. Play this game sometime. If you're not familiar with Amagon, look at it just for a second. That's all you need to do. Just for a second. Just for a second. And hit the jump button. And you'll be like, ooh, that's... Yeah, you don't really float down. You just the gravity just sucks you right back. It's as if you're jumping. You're jumping as like a reverse yo-yo. It's hard to describe. But an interesting run and gun game, all the same. You can't really shoot upwards or so much, but maybe you don't need to in a game like this. There is a weird upgrade. I didn't do it when I captured this footage. I'm capturing my own footage here. where your weapon becomes basically you as a muscular guy, like throwing uppercuts, which is pretty interesting. But like Contra, this game does have a one-hit kill. But Contra is still the way to go when it comes to these two games. This one might be, Amagon might be worth checking out though. Here's the other Sunsoft game, Batman Return of the Joker. Interesting to have Batman as a run-and-gun game, because Batman traditionally, the video games, it's like, oh, he's known for not shooting people. Well, he shoots people in this game. But it's not with a traditional gun, it's with these crazy Sunsoft video game type guns. As if the guns from Fester's Quest were real. He's shooting some crazy weaponry in a game like this. Again, it's not a two-player. It's not, you know, it's not a one-hit kill kind of thing. But it is a running a gun game. It plays very well. Nice big graphics on this one. Love the sprites. Contra is still the way to go, though, when it comes to these two games, in my opinion. So remember in Super C when you had that kind of overhead mode? Well, let's look at a couple of games that are kind of like that. And Jackal comes up. It actually came out about the same year, I believe, as far as Contra goes. You know, 1988, you had both Contra and you had Jackal. Jackal, I mean, it's a two-player game. It's the overhead. You have you're shooting bullets straight ahead. And you can also launch grenades, which can turn into missiles later on with your upgrades. And with the other enemies on the ground that are walking around, well, you can just run over them. Nothing wrong with that at all. So, I mean, if you like Contra, you're going to like this game. Especially if you love doing the couch co-op two-player games. Super, super fun. This game does have, I believe, unlimited continues. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So if you want to beat this game the very first time you play it, you sure may. You sure may. Would I consider this? I mean, you're not really running, so is this considered a run-and-gun game? Maybe not especially. Maybe not especially, but I think it's a lot of fun. And it's very similar to Contra and the Contra vibe. I would put Jackal on this list. But given the option, I'm still going with Contra. Same goes for Heavy Barrel. Now, it's another one of those overhead, two-player, you can shoot the other guys. You do have these giant bullets. You do have weapon upgrades, just like with fireballs and stuff like that too. Gotta appreciate that. You pick up these keys which unlock things, and of course you're trying to build the Heavy Barrel. The Heavy Barrel is like the best gun you can get in this game, which just obliterates everyone in its path. But also a lot like Jackal, that overhead style, the shooting everyone style. There's a lot to be said with a game like Heavy Barrel. I think it's wonderful. But it's just not Contra, and I'm giving this one to Contra as well. Oh, we can add Puss in Boots to the list. I mean, not exactly the running gun game you would expect to see on a thing like this. This game kind of made for kids, but it was made for just people to play video games. Does that make sense? I don't know. I just wanted to add this game just briefly, just for fun. I'm giving it to Contra for sure, but I mean, it kind of counts as a run and gun game. Just like Xerxes could kind of, but not really, because it's kind of a run and gun. But then there's like more storyline, and it turns into like a side-scrolling shooter. Like it's more like a space shooter, but then you have to have some action platformy levels too. So I mean, I love Xerxes, and this will come up with another video probably later on as well. But you know, not exactly the same for a list like this, and that would be the same for Russian Attack. I was thinking about Russian Attack, again, another game by Konami too. A little bit like Contra, where it's like, it's not really a run and gun because you don't shoot, you shank. So it's a run and shank style game, and you can pick up the bazooka, of course, which works just fine, but you're also like, you have like one button is shank, one button is your bazooka, and then the up button is jump. That's pretty weird when it comes to video games like this. But it does have the one-hit kill, and if you're into games from this era, definitely worth playing, but not exactly like Contra. But I just wanted to showcase it just briefly as a, like, well, I thought about it, I considered it, maybe not so much. I mean, Contra is Contra. Contra is the measuring stick when it comes to great run-and-gun games. There are still people making games today. So many great games that are being made today that are so plagiarizing Contra in the best way possible, and I'm all for it. Look up Super Cyborg on the Nintendo Switch and tell me that's not Contra. Come on now. I mean, Iron Meat, wow, what a fantastic game that is. Run and gun, this is Contra versus the rest, and we have more games versus the rest with other genres coming up for the NES very soon too. I hope you're subscribed. We'll do those videos coming out quick.